I think it's the concept of being honest to yourself and getting life,
Correct.
in
Correct.
search of what you think is
Yeah.
better for yourself and not getting into the social pressure.
Correct.
Interesting. So what happens next when you met your friend and then you go to Malaysia?
So I went to Malaysia.
Okay.
I mean, you have to understand that it's not one big thing. It's more like a series of small things. Like at one time, when I met my Malay friends for the first time, and I found out that they were Muslim, my first reaction was to ask them, "So when did the Arabs invade Malaysia?" And they looked at me like if I said the stupidest thing in the world. But as a Westerner, I was told that Islam was spread by the sword,
Oh, at that time, wow.
right? So like, my understanding was literally Muslim armies went all over the world to conquer
yeah,
these
invade,
territories, and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
why Islam spread. So when I found out that Islam spread in Malaysia without the sword, it's like, oh, that means what I learned at school was wrong. So there's like all these small things that kind of accumulated, and but the main thing is I went to Malaysia as a non-Muslim. I had a lot of interesting experiences. I came back and I basically started reading the English translation of the Quran. And when I read the English translation of the Quran, very quickly I knew this cannot be written by a human being.
How so?
Basically, the first 13 ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah. It's like you have never ever seen a book that says this is the book. It can only be the truth.
In the beginning of a book.
In the beginning of the book,
Okay.
and then I think like ayat 13, those who deny this truth are basically stupid. Wow!
What a great opening.
This is not a normal way of writing. So anyway, there's this intuition that I had that this is not the way a human being writes.
Okay.
And so very quickly I knew that this could not be from a human being. It can only be from God. But I basically procrastinated. And I procrastinated for a year. So for a year I just do research. But actually, almost at the beginning of my journey, I was already I knew one day I would become a Muslim.
Oh,
but,
really?
Not today. Just procrastinate.
Okay.
And then the interesting thing is, so I contacted some Muslim converts,
Okay.
and they were white. Okay. So before this, my assumption was that, first of all Muslims are Arabs. That was my assumption. Then I thought about it, say, hang on a second, a lot of my Muslims are not Arabs. A lot of my non-Muslim friends are not Arabs. So like already that stereotype was challenged.
Yeah.
Then I met these white Muslims. I said, oh, they're from my race. So somehow I realized that one of the negative stereotypes that I had was due to racial stereotyping.
Racial stereotyping.
And so overcoming this racial stereotyping was part of the journey. So literally, Islam is for the whole world. It's not for the Arabs or for the Malays or for whatever race you are. It's literally anybody could become a Muslim. And they were, the person that I was giving dawah, or who I had met, was actually very smart. They didn't talk about Islam.
Okay.
It was just getting to know him, getting to know his family. He had kids. The kids were very funny. So it's like a very chilled out kind of environment. And it's like, oh, this is
Normal conversation.
it's like it's a non-stressful way of getting to know about Islam. And then so I started to continue to do my research. And then after a while, I was intellectually convinced. But there was this one time where I made dua for the first time.
during this stage of you still not
Right.
Muslim.
I was non-Muslim, but I realized that it was only a matter of time. And I one day I was driving and I literally, like, all these things were in my mind, and I just parked my car. It was late at night. It was kind of a kampung area, so, like, you know, a lot of fields. And I just went to my knees, look at the sky and say, I need your help. That was it. That was my first dua. And I think that's when I got Hidayah. And I think one of the lessons learned is, if you don't ask for help, you're not going to get it. Or if you don't ask for Hidayah, you're not going to get it. And you have to ask for Hidayah sincerely. Like, if you just, like, do it as a mechanical routine, it's not going to come. But if you really, really, you want it, you ask for it, then Allah gives it to you.
What triggered you, doctor? What triggered you to lay on your knees and just ask the help of an entity that you at that time did you believe there was a God or Allah, or it was just a natural thing that?
So I think I really believe very much that we have a fitrah. And the fitrah means that we already have been programmed to believe. So naturally we believe in God. Naturally we know how to ask God for help. So it's literally like, I just did what came to me very intuitively.
Interesting.
But I think this stage was only possible because I'd already spent a year, like, reading the Quran and talking to people and trying to figure this out. And I was never interested in any other religions, because for me, all the other religions didn't make any sense. The only thing that really made sense was Islam. And you're probably going to ask why, right?
Yes, of course.
Very simple. There are three options.
All right.
Number one, there's no God.
Okay.
So this whole world is just random.
Okay.
Okay, it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. Number two, there's only one God. Okay. Number three, there's more than one God. Okay, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one God. Okay, there are three versions of this. Islam 1.0, which is Judaism. Islam 2.0, which is Christianity, or Islam 3.0, which is Islam. So it's like, logically, if you think about it, okay, let me investigate more about Islam. But one thing with Muslims is they overcomplicate Islam.
Overcomplicate
Yes.
Islam.
And so one of the wisdoms of talking to converts is, they say, no, you don't have to worry about it. It's not that complicated. Just, you have to do A, B, and C, and then that's it.
all.
That's all.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to ponder upon the part of you asking for Allah's help, or laying on your knees, because I think everybody else here who's watching got to have that moment of finding the truth, but somehow the majority of people don't see Allah at all. There's a divine thing that's going to help, so they just search from other people, or they ask from themselves. So again, what made to you the point where is the point of view and a divine entity is not just about.
Okay, I think there's a few things. One is, I've noticed before that Muslims in general rely too much on other people's advice. Right? At the end of the day, I believe that for you to really connect with Allah, you have to read the Quran.
Okay.
And you have to just to get in the habit of reflecting on the Quran.
Okay.
The second thing is the idea of sincerity. So when you're with a group of people, yes, you can make dua together and so on and so forth, but really you want to be alone. Like if you want to know whether you have ikhlas or not, you get in your car, you drive somewhere, and you just make dua in your car. Yes, literally you and God, and no one else. And so there's nobody to observe you. The dua doesn't have to be in Arabic. It could be in English, it could be in Malay, it doesn't matter. And you just ask for whatever you want.
Yeah.
And because literally nobody can see you, like ikhlas 100%. And that's it.
So
Simple.
I think that's the thing that we need to do as a Muslim, even though you are a Muslim, doctor, is a habit of having that sincerity that we need Allah's guide, Allah's help, and not just relying on people. And yes, we still need people's advice. Like you had the advice of your friends who introduced you to Islam. But at a certain point, there comes the point that, in your case, is the part where you make the dua, and for us as well, in our salah, maybe in our dua, and you just sincerely ask for Allah's help.
But I think the issue is sincerity, and it's
The
so
issue is sincerity.
the thing is so hard to know when you're being sincere or not. But when you're isolated from other people, you are sure that you are sincere. Like if when you're around people, you make a lot of dua, and then when you're alone, you don't make dua anymore. That's a sign, right? The ideal situation is when you're with people, you make dua because that's normal, and then when you're alone, you're still making dua. Then inshallah, the ikhlas is there.
Interesting.
But the other thing for me that I realized actually quite late in my life is the real game changer is reflecting on the Quran.
Okay.
And when you reflect on the Quran, it's like sincerity is really easy because you become very familiar with the Quran, and actually all the du'as are in the Quran, but you know the context of the dua, so it's like it's not something that you just memorized. It's more something that because you know the context, and when you say it, it's more meaningful.